know how to phrase my question. I'm a student in art and art education. Actually, you're talking about the pornography and art, the distinction between good arts or great artworks and pornography. I think in the Bible also says like sin, it's generates from the thought, from how people think.
That's right.
So the fault is not because of this image, but more because of my own interpretation or the special perspective I put. So for the same image, some people may think this is okay, and others may say not. Either or any artwork with nudity is wrong, is biblical, and how as a Christian going to see them and to deal with them.
Obviously, I think you've touched on the nerve of something very important and very hard to truly and comprehensively address. So let me come at it in 2 or 3 different directions. You're right that there is something internal that creates the distortion in the way you look at it. In fact, Phantom of the Opera, that famous line at the end, you know, it's in the soul that the true distortion lies. So the inner out of the heart are evil thoughts and adulteries and all of that. It's on the internal. But don't ever forget the second part of it, what Jesus said, to let your eye be single, because the eye is the lamp of the body, and if the light within you becomes darkness, how great is the darkness indeed. Beauty is an extraordinary gift given to us by God, but it is not given to us in a vacuum. God says this in His Word, to worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness, which means beauty has a fence around it. It is not purely an evocative thing. It must be bounded by the very character and the person of God. William Blake, the Romantic poet, commented on this remarkably years before. He talked about the eyes. This life's dim windows of the soul distorts the heavens from pole to pole and goads you to believe a lie when you see with and not through the eye. This life's dim windows of the soul distorts the heavens from pole to pole and goads you to believe a lie when you see with and not through the eye. What this Blakean warning was that we are intended to see through the eye and with the conscience. Now we are ending up seeing with the eye, devoid of a conscience. Now, obviously, no human being can legislate for the artist what it is that actually the artist may or may not do in a free society. But if I were an artist, I would know what my parameters would be, because my parameters will be bound by a worldview. The worldview dictates art and beauty for me. The question is not whether art can be profane or sacred. The question is, what is the worldview behind that art? That worldview is where we have to do the analyzing, not ultimately in the expression. Probably Oscar Wilde is one of the most artistic human beings that ever lived, both in terms of his poetry and in terms of his plays and so on. In his book, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Remember the story of the Picture of Dorian Gray. It's the story of this beautiful looking young man who an artist is attracted to. And when he paints the portrait of the artist gets up and looks at it and says, "This is really magnificent," and walks away and says to himself, "I hope I can live any way I want and this beauty will never get marred." So he goes and makes a deal, as it were, and he goes and hides the painting away, that my face will never change no matter how I live. And as the years go by, he is living a very indulgent life, but nothing changes on the exterior. He is an adult, he is living in adultery, he is living in profanity, he is living in this, and finally in murder. And one day the artist comes to visit him and says, "Dorian, where's the painting?" He says, "Oh, I've put it away in the attic." He said, "Can I see it?" And they go upstairs and he uncovers it, and the painting is completely marred and disfigured. And he says, "Dorian, don't you know, though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow, though they be red as crimson, they shall be white as wool." And he knows he's been caught. He stabs the artist to death. He comes back to the attic to look at the completely marred and bloodied face, and he stabs at the painting, and a blood-curdling scream is heard by the servants. And when they come upstairs, the picture returns to its pristine beauty, and Dorian is lying on the floor, marred and disfigured. This comes from a man for whom hedonism was the watchword, who reminded us that there's a price to pay. So the greatest disfigurement in the artist who lives under the illusion of just mere beauty is to know that there's a price to be paid. I have a responsibility beyond mere the artistic expression. You know, you listen to some of the songs of rock lyrics, you know, I had sex with a corpse and raped this woman and did this and that, and it sells millions of copies. That's not art. That's sheer profanity. So the artist first must defend his or her worldview. And when his or her worldview is defended, then the logical outworking goes, you don't debate at the point of expression, you debate at the point of understanding. And if the worldview is going for beauty, the worldview will go for the beauty of holiness, not the beauty of profanity. Some great books are written on the subject. In my book, Recapture the Wonder, I address some of this too. Your point is well taken. If you're an artist, you have that bent of imagination that maybe those given to prose are not, but the imagination is one of the most sacred things you have. And what happens in Hollywood today is to assault the imagination, not to entertain it properly, and that's where we are paying the price.